I think you have seen different scale. I think you have seen different components of how scale was. So now my question is all about like what are the challenges that every organization need to think and rethink before they say Kubernetes adoption in their production, and also what are those key factors that they need to really reimagine in order to get that right adoption into their production, because not every production is ready for Kubernetes, not every SDLC is suitable for that. But what should an organization rethink and what should they actually reimagine while adopting Kubernetes?
There are quite a few things, quite a few, and I'm almost certainly going to name only a few, not all of them, because the list could go, we could speak for hours now only on that subject, right? But to begin with, one of the main obstacles is that if you do things right, you design your application in a way that is suitable for the environment you're running it, right? So when we had mainframes, we were designing applications in a certain way. When we started running it on bare metal, we designed it in another way, and so on and so forth, right? Now, you can put anything in a container. But if you just put random stuff in a container, you're in a lot of pain and suffering, and the return of investment is going to be negligible, right? So the first thing people should consider is whether this is a suitable application to run in a Kubernetes cluster. Anything can run, but the benefits, if you say, hey, if the benefits for a microservice are 100, whatever the imaginary random number, then for a WebSphere running application running in Kubernetes, the benefits are 3 or 17, right? Much smaller than the return of investment is much smaller than if you run something that is designed for Kubernetes. And when I say designed for Kubernetes, that's actually not the right expression. Designed to be cloud native. What I would recommend to everybody is to Google 12-factor apps, right? That's a list of 12 factors. I think that Heroku came up with that. That if you fulfill most of those 12 factors, you're well suited to running Heroku back in the days, right? But that's equally valid today for Kubernetes. So think about architecture and whether your application would benefit from Kubernetes itself, right? If you cannot scale it up, probably not beneficial. If you cannot upgrade it and during that process be moved to somewhere else, not beneficial, right? So think about whether it's worth it. Not all applications are good for Kubernetes. But to me, that's the lesser of the problems, right? Bigger problems are cultural and process-wise, right? When we compare Kubernetes to what most people were doing before, even though you were not forced to do it, is that we see in the past something much more static and now something much more dynamic, right? In the past, if you ask a person, hey, where is this application running? That person would tell you, oh, that's on server called Unicorn, right? There is a server, we even give it a name, and that's where that application is running, right? Now, if you ask somebody, hey, where is my application running that is in Kubernetes? The answer is, I have no idea. And if I find out where it's running on which server in a cluster, by the time I tell you, it will already be somewhere else, right? So it's moving, it's dynamic, it's ever changing and evolving in a way, right? And the third big problem that I'm seeing is people being afraid to lose control, right? In the past, and by the way, everything I said for the previous point for Kubernetes, that typically applies in cloud as well. It's not specific to Kubernetes. Anyways, going back to control, right? Traditionally, historically, we're used to that idea that you are doing something, and you're in control of that something. Hey, I'm going to log into this server, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and so on and so forth, right? You're performing certain steps, certain operations. And in Kubernetes, you're not doing those things. You cannot tell Kubernetes, do this, or do this at this specific moment. And after you finish doing that, do that, right? You're not doing that at all, even though sometimes it looks like you are, but you're not. What you're doing with Kubernetes, you're specifying the desired state. You're saying, hey, I would like to have application based on this image running as 3 replicas somewhere. Right? And it sounds like it's almost the same, but it's not. It's a very huge difference between imperative, I'm going to tell you what to do, and declarative, where you say, I'm not going to tell you what to do, I'm going to tell you what I want to have. And then that people do not admit it, but that sounds very scary, right? Very often people ask me, hey, can I have something equivalent to Terraform plan with Kubernetes? Can I get information what will happen before I tell Kubernetes to do something? And the answer is no. Because Kubernetes, after you say, I want this, Kubernetes will spend 1 millisecond or 1 second or 1 minute or 1 hour or 1 week trying to make that happen, right? So I see it more like, if you think of roles, you have an ops person or sysadmin, right? Now with Kubernetes, you're less of that person. You're more of a manager. You know, a person that comes to your office and says, I do not know what you guys are doing, but I'm going to tell you that I want this to be done. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know why. I mean, you should know why, right? Good managers do. But you're instructing more what you want than how to do it. And it takes time until, kind of sounds easy, but it takes time until our brains are rewritten to follow that logic.